No. This is not exactly a cooking show. Although I guess you could probably say what we're doing is somewhat cooking. But what I want to talk about is creating a good yeast starter. Now, most of us, I'm sure, get our yeast either as dry or liquid, white labs or Y yeast, and they all work really well. However, I really like to have my yeast to get started quickly. There's nothing worse than waiting a day, day and a half for something to happen. You're going, is it okay? I like it to start quickly. Within 4 or 5 hours, I want things bubbling along. So I always make a good starter, and I thought we'd talk about it. Starts out obviously with a pot. I use a little over a liter of water, so a little over a quart, into this pot. On the kitchen stove, I add a half a cup of DME. It doesn't matter if it's light or dark. It really is not going to affect your brew overall. However, if you're really fanatical, you might use the lighter for the pale ales and the dark for your darker beers. Get it boiling. Now remember, it could boil over, just like it can in a wort pot, because that's basically what we're doing. We're creating our own miniature version of a big wort boil. This is my favorite stir. We get to stir in this thing, get it mixed up well, and I let it boil, a good boil, for about 15 minutes. Okay? Once I'm done with a good solid boil, and probably the last minute or two, I always throw on a lid. I want it to get good and hot and steamy in there, and that helps with sanitation. What's the most important thing in having wort touch anything? It's got to be sanitized. And so I sanitize everything. So now we've boiled our little wort, like that. Little wort, big wort. We've boiled our little wort, and now it's time to cool it. Well, for this size, I end up sticking it in the sink, throwing in some cool water and some ice cubes around it, and it cools it down very quickly. I leave the lid on. I don't want anything falling in. I do a lot of testing with my hands. Just touch the side. Now we know, approximately 113 degrees is where a human goes, ouch. Lower than that, it can be uncomfortable. Hot tubs are about 104 degrees. We know what that feels like. So, I just keep feeling it, and when I figure it's cooled down enough that I can add my yeast, I'm set. So what happens? Personally, I really like using flask. So I have a couple of these flasks ready to go. Now I sanitize this flask before anything touches it. So this flask has now been totally sanitized and ready to go. I basically pour my wort into the flask. Now, you can then put on your bubble top. I use cheap vodka as my barrier liquid. Put on your top, spin it around, and your yeast is going to start working and it's going to be happy. However, I have found that I really like to get it spinning and working quicker and stay working. So I like to use a stir plate, and they're very simple. I found this particular stir plate on the internet. Found it on eBay. There was 6 of them for sale. None of them worked. 20 bucks. Well, all 6 of them were easily repaired. Paid more for the magnetic stir sticks. But sanitize this. You can do it the same time you sanitize your flask, because this needs to be added to the flask. That sits at the bottom, and as it sits on top of the stir plate, just have it as a gentle stir. You don't need a major vortex. And let it continue to stir it. This thing will go nuts and have a great time. And you're basically making beer at the time it's stirring. I do like the stir plates. Okay, couple days down the road, this thing is basically done what it's going to do. You're going to see, once you turn it off and let it settle, a much heavier amount of yeast than you could have possibly started with. And you know those yeasts are happy and healthy and are ready to turn your big wort into great beer. So, we're done with the stir plate. Take your flask. What's what I like to do? You could just pour the entire thing into your wort. I don't do it. I can't really give you a strong reason why not. I just don't. I put it the night before I'm going to brew in the refrigerator. The cold lets the yeast settle down to the bottom. Once the yeast has settled, then the next day, when I'm about ready to use it, I bring it out. I just let it warm up. Then I decant the liquid from the yeast. So in other words, I just gently pour off that wort. Don't throw it away. And what I've got is a good slurry of yeast. Now I'm ready to pitch that yeast into my big wort. And so you've got your fermenter all set up. You're ready to pitch your yeast. Here you go. Pull your top off and put your yeast in. Make sure you get as much as you can, but you will have an incredible work of yeast. What will happen is you're going to find that your fermentation will start within 3 or 4 hours, and it'll be a vigorous fermentation. You aren't going to be waiting for 24, 36, 48 hours going, oh, I hope this is working. So, yeast starters, fantastic. So easy to do, yet I think you'll find the rewards are well worth the effort put into it.